Welcome to Not Just Money with your hosts, Doretta and Lee. This isn't your typical podcast about finances. It's a podcast about all the money conversations we aren't having, sometimes not even with ourselves. Join us on this journey of hard truths, lived experience, and the wisdom that comes from both. Because money is never just about money. Well, hello. Normally, Doretta starts the show, but every so often, one of us probably has a life event to attend. And with a weekly podcast, the show must go on. This week, you're all stuck with me as I go on our very first mail run, meaning an episode where we go over some of the emails and comments we've received from listeners. And if you want to get featured, write to us, notjustmoneypodcast@gmail.com. So a few questions as I go through these emails. Some questions are bizarrely personal, so I will skip over those. I feel like we share a lot already on this show, and I'm not sure listeners really want to dig that deep on our emotional state of mind at pivotal life moments. Generally, the emails and comments that come in fall into one of three categories. Questions from a particular show or about us personally, comments and thoughtful suggestions based on the topics we cover, and topics for the future. And thank you to those who share how much they enjoyed the show. Please feel free to rate us on the platform of your choice or send a link to a friend that might want to hang out with us every Friday morning. Seriously, if you like us, share us. Now, we have received a lot of love on our savings hacks and also a lot of opinions. Some interesting opinions included replacing soles is very expensive. The gap between cheap and expensive shoes is vast. That's probably true if you think about it, and also where you buy those shoes, and also if they're trendy and probably are only trendy for, let's say, this season. There are some pretty funky styles out there. Also, I think if you have weirdly shaped feet, that becomes a problem too, because of course, the more you use the sole of that shoe on the inside, it can probably cause all sorts of other issues. So speaking from experience, I have weird feet, so I know. So I generally try to change my shoes as opposed to resoling them, but I guess everybody is different. Another good comment, I am a fan of skincare, but less on random products and more on quality as I get older. That's pretty common. I feel like when we're younger, we're trying a lot of different things to find out what works for us and what doesn't. I also find with skincare that your skin tends to change. So free samples are a girl's best friend or a guy's best friend. No judgment here. Because honestly, you don't know how it will actually work on your skin because it's, again, constantly changing. Also, the seasons affect it too, I find. So here's another savings hack, right? When you go out to some of these big stores or brand names, ask for samples. Try it out first. You don't need to buy it because someone recommended it. Try it on your skin first and see how it makes you feel. Oh, this was really cute. I don't think I've told Doretta this. Someone wrote, I want a bitch suit. Can Doretta refer me? I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't think Doretta provided details on that. But what's really funny is the moment she mentioned it, I was like, oh man, do I have to edit this out? Like, is that a word that we would lose our clean podcast rating? Anyways, I decided to leave it in. I thought it was pretty poignant, and apparently I was right. And people really resonated with that. Some shared ideas on money saving tactics, which I thought were really neat. The first one was stay healthy. I mean, there's a whole host of reasons why you should stay healthy, but there's lots of optional procedures that can get expensive, or even, let's say, not optional, like you should probably do those procedures, but they're not covered by universal healthcare. So in Ontario, that would be OHIP as an example. Any province or territory you're in, the basics are covered, especially any of that acute care piece if you're a resident or a Canadian citizen. But it's true, there's a lot of conditions, whether that's dental, I think is a really good example of that, where if you don't have private insurance, it can get really expensive. So having good habits for sure. Also, I just think generally living pain-free really should be on your list of life goals, right? So okay, here's some more personal information. Last week, my mother got a new knee. If you have any questions about needing knee surgery, you can ask me because there's not a lot I don't know in this field right now. And it's been a struggle for her, for everyone around us. I mean, the procedure was free, but there's a lot of additional costs. Like some of the medication didn't work for her, so we had to go out and buy some over-the-counter medication which isn't covered. And so all your costs go up, or mobility devices. All this stuff. You don't think about it. You think, okay, well, healthcare is free, but what about everything else that supports that ailment or critical illness? And also, if you think about it, if you're ill, you can't go to work. And so then that really affects your ability to earn income, which is obviously going to affect your financial well-being. So, yes, thank you for that comment because as I'm thinking it through right now, there's so many aspects that that really affects. And so staying healthy, making good choices, whether that's eating whole foods, staying away from the junk aisle, or daily exercise, get that cardio in 30 minutes a day, or lift some weights. There's all sorts of these things that I think help us mitigate some of these really big challenges that maybe don't cost us anything in the world of universal health care, but have other associated costs that we don't actually think about until we're there. But I can tell you, just with my mom's knee surgery, there's been a lot of cost. Just even eating out. In my case, I'm caregiving. And so just not having the capacity to make another meal and just ordering takeout. Think about the health impacts of that long term. Also, it's so expensive to eat at restaurants these days, even takeout. Some days I go, wow, I do not remember spending that much money on X, Y, and Z. Next, online reviews were popular. Someone recommended Wirecutter, which is a product recommendation service owned by the New York Times. Even they have affiliate marketing associated, which I thought was really interesting. Thank you to AI that provided some of those details. Also, a lot of you use food reviews on different sites like Google or some of the reservation apps like OpenTable. So that was kind of interesting to get a second opinion. But like we said on the original episode, you really also have to be careful of whose advice you're reading because oftentimes you don't know if it's been paid or meals have been comped. Or I sometimes find myself at restaurants where they really push you to give a Google review. Like, I mean, I got accosted at this one restaurant. Oh, please give us 5 stars. Please give us 5 stars. And I'm like, aren't you supposed to earn that? Like, why are you harassing me on this? Anyways, it was a bit awkward and it was very aggressive. But other times, they give you free stuff. It's like, hey, give us a 5-star review. We'll give you free dumplings. I try not to participate in that, but I have to admit I've done it once and it felt weird. I didn't like it because it felt disingenuous. Like, I don't know if I would have given them 5 stars, but I also wanted the free dumplings. I don't know. It was a tough call. That was probably the one and only time I've done it because I'm like, now my name's out there. What if someone saw that and was like, "Oh, well, Lee thought it was a good place, and in fact it wasn't." I feel like my reputation would then be diminished. Not that anybody would even know, like, who is this Lee person and why she's giving this 5 stars, but still, from like a personal position, yeah, I wouldn't do it. But I have done it once and lived to regret it. Some of you found some of our episodes, like Surviving Debt with Stacy, a bit long. And you're probably right. Stacy was our first guest and honestly a national treasure. And for us, it's so hard. There's so much good information that we want to provide. There's just so much we want to talk about. There was a number of questions we couldn't even ask Stacy because it was getting so long. And it never seems like there's enough time, but we hear you and we will try to keep our episodes at a more reasonable length or maybe split them up because some of the topics are really technical or challenging or just nuanced. When you go through that debt episode, there's just layers upon layers upon layers because what kind of debt it is, how you can restructure, what choices you have in that process, what to watch out for. There's just so much interesting and necessary information, especially for those of us who are in debt. It's really helpful. And so we just really want to cover everything. But yes, we hear you. Like close to an hour gets a bit long, especially on a financial podcast. I understand it's not always the sexiest topic. And we really do our best to try to make it approachable and fun and non judgmental. But we still want to make sure that we're giving you the best advice and the best education or the best knowledge that we can in these situations. Because these days, especially with AI and all this stuff that's out there, you have no idea what they're trying to sell you, who's paid for that, or even if it's real in terms of the person giving that advice. I know Doretta keeps saying it, but AI is going to be a really interesting element when we look at the knowledge industry. We all rely on looking things up. But what happens when we can't trust or rely on that source? Because I'm guilty as the next. When I look up things on Google or whatever, that AI definition is the first thing I look at. And you have to be careful because what if it's not true? And we don't take the time necessarily to just scroll down and look for a more quote unquote reasonable and believable, oh gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Blah, 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 blah. Reputable? Whatever. Whatever's the truth. Anyways, I'm moving on. Oh, okay. Here's one on talking to kids about money. One listener shared that she opened bank accounts as soon as she had her kids, and all monetary gifts they receive goes into their account and is invested. I thought that was really interesting. And I wonder for the parents out there what you think. Do you do that? Now, I also get money for my daughter. We talked about red packets and holidays and cultural things and guilty. I keep a spreadsheet. I know. We talk about not everything has to be about spreadsheets, but spreadsheets work for some people. Now, any money she's gifted or any proceeds to the sale of her stuff, even stuff I bought, goes into her account. Most of that sits into her RESPs, which is her registered educational savings plan, which we probably need to cover too at some point. Doretta and I have been really avoiding the whole investment category. It's really tough because there's a lot of opinions around this space. And we didn't necessarily want to do an episode where we just kind of gave facts. Like, what's an RESP? How do you use it? Because oftentimes when people are making decisions, it goes beyond that. But at the end of the day, when we talk about investments, it's about risk tolerance. So we'll take a look at that for a future episode. Sorry, I'm digressing now. Now, I think my approach would be to wait until my daughter gets her first part-time job. I have this vision of us going to the bank together, talking with the bank folks, getting her comfortable in that setting, then teach her about the different accounts and also probably talk about her first paycheck. Because I think one of the issues we face now when it comes to financial access, not financial literacy, but financial access, is that there's a fear of some to deal with financial professionals because they think, oh, well, I don't know enough and I'm going to talk to someone who does. And what if I sound stupid? We hear that comment quite a lot. But the truth is, unless you get comfortable asking questions, and maybe some of them are not ideal questions, but they're questions you need answers, you should ask them. Because there is something about not having access to products and services that you need from a financial perspective. And you won't know that unless you ask questions. And I think for me, as I reflect on what my values are, it's to make sure that my daughter feels comfortable in these situations to engage with financial professionals because she's going to have to at some point when she gets her first job and I don't know, 15, 16. I think for me it would be a good time to introduce some of those um, kind of operational issues, not the values and the place of money and how that works, but the semantics of it. Like, how do you do X, Y, and Z? It was really funny. A while ago, I was building a program for new Canadians. And it was fascinating because we did all this research with newly landed immigrants, as well as immigrants who had been here for 3 to 5 years. And we asked them questions like, what are some of the financial challenges you face today? And also for the newcomers who had been here for a while, we asked, if you had a magic wand and you went back to when you first arrived to Canada, what do you wish you had known then that you know now? And some of the things were really simple, like writing a check. There's actually the whole generation of folks, Canadian and non, or soon to become, who don't know how to write checks. And yes, in a world where we have Interact and e-transfer, you're like, why do I need to write a check? But yeah, you still need to be able to write a check like first and last month if you're renting, as an example. Or if you have to make payment to a corporation, not as easy as saying, I'm going to make a payment to, I don't know, Bob from down the street because I know their email or their phone number. It doesn't always work that way. So I think that's a good life skill to have, to be able to write checks. Now, I sit on my daughter's parent advisory council, and everything in the school board operates on checks. No one ever said, oh, I'm going to interact that. No, we don't do that. So things like that I think is still important. Maybe it's diminishing, but it would really suck if the one time you needed to use it, you're like, I have no idea how to write a check. Anyways, I think either is an interesting approach. What else? I was happily surprised with the reception to our What is Enough episode. Now, people really liked that episode. I really thought that was going to be the episode where we lost folks. Enough is really personal and honestly can turn some off. But how warm was my heart when I got comments that people were happy, that they knew they had enough, but our episode somehow gave them the language to communicate that. I really did shed a tear. I'm not gonna lie. Oh, this was cute. There was also a comment to my opposable thumbs argument. They sent me a link to an article, which I will link. Essentially, the article says that the opposable thumb is not a uniquely human trait. Other animals, including orangutans and gorillas, have them. Some marsupials, like koalas and opossums. Is it opossums or just possums? I'm going to say opossums. Also, giant pandas to tiny frogs have pseudo-opposable thumbs that help them with daily life. What the heck is a pseudo-opposable thumb? Okay, hold on. Stay with me. Let's look this up. Okay. Pseudo, did I spell pseudo right? Opposable thumb. Oh, wait. Somebody has already asked this question, as that option totally just popped up for me. All right, this is what AI is telling me. It is an anatomical structure, often an enlarged wrist bone or specialized digit that functions like a thumb by aiding in grasping, but is not a true mobile articulated digit. Oh, wait, there's a picture. Hold on. Oh, well, that's kind of interesting. The picture is like a little hook or like a sixth digit. You're welcome. That's information that you are never going to need, but now you know. And you heard it on a podcast on money. I guess that means we survived because of dopamine. Dopamine 1, Lee 0. All right. Finally, let's move into some questions. Yeah, this is a good question. Okay. I appreciated the episode on the basics of saving, but honestly, I can barely manage to cover all my costs. How do I save? Okay. This is only my opinion. We'll have to ask Doretta to weigh in later. But there are some things that financial education lies about. Not everyone can save because living is expensive, and living in major cities anywhere is expensive. The only way to save is to make more than what you spend. Sometimes you are, in fact, doing everything right. You make good choices, you are informed, you care about your money, but the truth is, if you don't make enough, you can't save. I actually think a great episode idea would be on earning income. A big part of financial wellness is actually on the other side of saving, which is earning. Ha! You thought I was going to say spending, right? I actually see saving and spending as the same thing. I know someone is going to say it's blasphemous. Doretta's probably telling me it's blasphemous right now, having heard this episode. But saving, in a way, is just delayed or investing in your future spending. That's really what it is, right? Like, so when you don't save, you're just discounting your future self. But there are some really hard truths out there. So this week, IG Wealth Management released their annual retirement study. And I love these annual studies because you really see the trends and the shifts that are happening year over year. So they are saying that a generational shift is reshaping how Canadians approach retirement, as 48% of non-retirees have a workplace pension. That's whack. In the past, we talked about the difference between defined benefit or defined contribution. Now the conversation is around if you have one or not. That's crazy. Defined contribution already placed the burden of being prepared for your retirement years on the individual. This is like 1,000 times worse. Now, 11% of non-retired Canadians say they know how much annual income they will need in retirement. That's not a high number. While roughly half say they simply do not know at all. Terrifying. 1/3 said they have a retirement plan and savings, and 1/4 of employer pension holders didn't know the details of their plan. Big ass sigh. Now, I don't want to get into the specifics of retirement because that's actually a huge conversation, and we absolutely got some odds and ends questions around retirement. And I think that's a good sign because clearly people are thinking about it. Doretta and I have yet to tackle this one. Other than purchasing a home, retirement is that big dollar sign that we all strive for and hopefully look forward to. And as we live longer and longer, a lot of people are afraid of running out of money, and I can understand that. For a long time, we always used 85 years to guesstimate how much money we needed. But now, if you work with financial planners or whatever, they actually use 95. So if you retire at 65, think about all the years between 65 and 95 that you need to spend that you're not earning. And it's just such a really interesting conversation because retirement really is about a combination of several factors, like the lifestyle you want, when you think you will kick the bucket. That's a big part of that equation. And honestly, do you want to leave anything for anyone? Which sometimes that's a yes, sometimes that's a hard no. And I also think there are some interesting tools and equations we can share. So the other day, Doretta sent me a link about your coast fire number, and I did my calculations. So, coast fire number is a financial strategy where you save and invest aggressively early in your career, much like what you would call your traditional fire. That allows the portfolio to grow through compound interest until your target retirement age. And that coast number is the target retirement goal. So it's a number without needing further contributions. Now, once this coast number is reached, you only need to earn enough to cover current living expenses. So that allows you to switch to lower stress, part-time, or passion-driven work that may or may not pay less. You would hope it paid more. Versus the traditional fire, which is save as much as you can to retire at 40 or 45, whichever. Because coast fire anticipates that you won't retire until retirement age, but you've put away enough money today that will grow in time to meet your base requirements. In Canada, we are lucky to have universal health care. It's kind of insane, the cost of healthcare in many other countries. Look at the US, but that's one of the many issues. Okay, that was kind of related, but also a bit of a tangent. I think I will stop there today. If you are still listening, thank you for staying with my solo show until the end. Might have been a bit spastic in the middle. Write to us, notjustmoneypodcast@gmail.com. Share your thoughts. We read every email. If I didn't cover your comment today, feel free to send me hate mail. As always, good talk. You've been listening to Not Just Money with Doretta and Lee. Click on the show's description for links to resources related to today's conversation. Our aim is to share sources that provide objective information that can help you make informed financial decisions. Please rate and review our show. If you'd like to get in touch with us, email us at notjustmoneypodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to be featured on the show, you can send us your questions and comments by a written email, audio file, or video file. Please include your name and city. This show is produced and edited by Lee, with original music by Leo Zhang cello and artwork by John Tu. Now for some legalese. Please note that the views expressed by our hosts and guests are theirs alone and should not be viewed as financial advice. This podcast is intended to be entertainment and educational in nature. Please seek additional professional support or information before acting on any podcast information. As always, good talk.